The German government collapses after budget disputes lead to the finance minister Lindner's dismissal. Vice President Kamala Harris concedes the election to Donald Trump.
The German traffic coalition has officially failed. Chancellor Olaf Scholz announced on Wednesday that he has fired Finance Minister Christian Lindner. Inter-party fighting has escalated over the past 3 years, with the rift becoming irreparable during the 2025 household budget discussions.
Zu oft hat Bundesminister Lindner Gesetze sachfremd blockiert. Zu oft hat kleinkariert parteipolitisch taktiert. Zu oft hat mein Vertrauen gebrochen. Sogar die Einigung auf den Haushalt hat einseitig wieder aufgekündigt, nachdem wir uns in langen Verhandlungen bereits darauf verständigt hatten. Es gibt keine Vertrauensbasis für die weitere Zusammenarbeit. So ist ernsthafte Regierungsarbeit nicht möglich.
Scholz has said he will put a vote of confidence to the German parliament in January, and if he loses, then early elections could be held as early as March next year. The dramatic breakup comes just hours after the US elected President Donald Trump for a second time, that is expected to increase pressure on the EU and Germany in particular. German President Steinmeier is expected to deliver a statement on Thursday morning. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.
Dozens of European leaders have arrived in Budapest for a meeting of the European political community on Thursday, followed by an informal EU summit on Friday. The biannual meeting will focus on a number of global and continental issues, including European security challenges, Russia's war in Ukraine, conflict in the Middle East, and illegal migration. The summit comes in the wake of Donald Trump's victory in the US election, a geopolitical development that could have far-reaching consequences across the continent. During his campaign, Trump threatened a trade war with Europe and a US withdrawal from NATO commitments. Of highest concern, however, is Trump's position on Russia's war in Ukraine. The president-elect has vowed to end the war within 24 hours of being elected, raising fears that he may reduce or cut off financial and military assistance to the war-torn country. Trump's views on Ukraine are shared by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who is set to host a dinner after the EP summit as the current holder of the bloc's rotating presidency. Orbán was the first European leader to congratulate Trump, who he believes will be an ally in his government's efforts to resist European policies on Ukraine. There are fears among some officials that Orbán might invite Trump to join the dinner via a video call.
So what we can expect now is that he will channel Donald Trump into European politics and also into the European political community. And while his message is going to be that I am the one who can mediate between you guys and Donald Trump, and no question that he will be perceived by many and already perceived by many for good reasons as someone who can be a gatekeeper to Donald Trump.
And for the EU, where populist and hard-right forces have already put a strain on the political establishment, Trump's election will only embolden them further.
Two candidates with very different views competed for support.
The U.S. ambassador to Hungary said that the Hungarian government gambled with US-Hungary relations as he responded to the outcome of the U.S. presidential election.
Hungary's relationship.
David Pressman said that the damage caused runs deeper than the 4-year term of a president.
Prime Minister Orbán treated this election like a card game at a casino, and he placed a very big bet. Whether he believes that he won or lost this hand, he was gambling not with money, but with the US-Hungary relationship, a relationship that has been altered by his gamesmanship.
Pressman spoke as Donald Trump, the Republican presidential candidate, which has been openly backed by the Hungarian government, won the 2024 U.S. presidential election.
A relationship between allies?
He concluded his speech by saying that democracy survives when people and their leaders value and defend it, and the same applies to the alliance between the U.S. and Hungary.
He told his people that seemingly all of their problems would go away.
Vice President Kamala Harris has conceded the presidential election to Donald Trump. As she addressed the American public on Wednesday, she encouraged supporters to continue fighting for their vision of the country.
I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service.
Harris said she called Trump on Wednesday afternoon to congratulate him on his victory. Following a tight race, Harris lost the electoral vote to Trump in every battleground state, a profound rejection by American voters.
Opportunity for
we're on the 5-yard line, maybe even the 1-yard line.
If Donald Trump does what he promised during the electoral campaign, EU economic growth could be seriously undermined. The president-elect repeatedly stated his intention to impose a 10% tariff on European products. And one of the worst hit sectors would be the automotive industry, in particular the German one. The Association of the German Automotive Industry says everything must be done to ensure that new US tariffs are not imposed.
I think that both sides need to talk to prevent this. If it happens, we both know what will happen next. Then the European Union will probably have some measurements already ready, and that will be another start of a trade conflict or something in that direction. And that is not what we need. Europe and the US need to understand now that looking at all the geopolitical challenges, that we need to work together, and that geopolitics and economics needs to be thought together.
The situation for the automotive industry in Germany is already difficult, with Volkswagen recently announcing the closure of 3 plants. A recent study found that 168,000 jobs could be lost over the next decade as the industry switches to EV production. The other most affected sector would be the steel industry. The US and Europe still haven't fully resolved the issue of tariffs imposed by the previous Trump administration. They have already caused a noticeable slump in exports. According to the European Steel Association, further lengthy and complex negotiations lie ahead.
There was found a kind of way forward between Joe Biden and the European Commission, Ms. von der Leyen, to address the trade conflicts concerning steel with a global arrangement on sustainable steel and aluminium. The negotiations had been stalled since the election campaigns in the US started. And we have, of course, hoped, and we still hope, that the negotiations can continue now after the elections to find a solution, because otherwise we will fall back into the tough 25% tariffs on European steel.
The association also underlines the need for the new US president to be persuaded of the climate goals, not least for his own country's industry, as steel and aluminium production is one of the biggest carbon emitters.
Thousands of travel representatives have landed in London for the World Travel Market trade event, as new data shows global tourism is now breaking pre-pandemic records. But where does that leave pledges to ease overcrowding and to deliver on sustainability?
Actually, this over-tourism rhetoric is like on the edge of being real or not, because it's not over a long period of time. We have a phenomenon like this when cruises, for instance, visit small islands that cannot handle too many tourists at the same time. We think it's an issue of infrastructure and management at a local level that makes the difference.
With sustainability, the travel sector says it's not just working to be net zero, but also striving for net positive. This amid mounting climate change concerns and extreme weather events impacting the sector.
The stats say that people are acutely aware of the impact on the environment, and many of them are eager to go to destinations that have a lower carbon footprint. I think there's a bigger impact as well on the weather and how that's changing people's travel choices.
With the tourism bounce back, there's also been pushback from communities. Some European destinations have seen anti-tourism protests amid concerns over things like environmental damage and high rental prices. In Croatia, short-term rentals are now changing.
We are passing the law in which we are requiring 80% approval of the tenants in the buildings when short-term rentals are possible. We will have a situation in which we have our apartments and residential areas, I'm not going to say free from tourists, but with a significant reduced number of tourists.
For the global travel and tourism sector, the pressure is now on to prove that it can be a force for good. Damon Embling, Euronews, London.